I really want to have that happen one day.
What?
That scene that just happened.
Oh, that we should all do that. We should dress up and just you could. We should do it. Get
Well,
Cliff's get
we could
Cliff's
do the scene, but
daughters.
just have that moment where it's like, oh, people think you're a superhero. It's like, oh, so you really want to go out here and fight crime?
Let's get dangerous. And then we see a pack of thug boys coming down the street and go run the other way. And he'll throw a fake wallet. When I was a little girl, they used to tell you that when I started going out on my own,
Mhm,
the grandmas and aunties and stuff used to say, keep a $5 bill in your brassiere.
mhm.
And that way, if somebody tried to rob you, you go, oh, hold on. You make a deal of reaching into your brassiere and you pull it out. Don't let them see it. It's kind of rolled up so they don't know how many bills it is. And
Mhm.
go, here you go. And then run the other way.
That works.
I've been lucky. I've never had to do it.
Yep, that's the
Yeah.
good thing here. But we are sans Cliff today.
Hope you're
He's still
enjoying your vacation, Mr. Man.
well. It's I wouldn't say it's a vacation. I can't even say education because that would be defeating the purpose here because
Well, it
it's
is somewhat
educational.
educational.
Yeah, it's educational, but the whole point of vacation and education being that education is a word, it's not a combination of educating and vacation. So it's like,
Well, education. It's an education.
yeah,
See there? It's an education. There you go.
it just doesn't hit right. You know how I am
Dude,
as a writer. The deal doesn't hit right. The whole purpose of
dude,
it was what it is.
dude.
But
Any minute, this side of my face is just going to blow up from a sore tooth. Okay.
okay, but so that's the reason why we're just going to go straight into it. We're about to do the whole thing about Goltar.
Okay. Oh,
Goltar was the '80s. I would say the late '80s attempt to recreate Thundar the Barbarian, except it not no
oh, okay.
longer a barbarian. It's now a kind of like a knight who stumbled on. It was like the best way I could put it, from what I remember as a kid. It was pretty much two different two different kingdoms that finally about to get ready to unite here. One had access to the Golden Lands, which is the weapon that Goldar has.
Okay.
And then his companion is after the Mystic Shield. And once both of them brought together, it could bring peace across the land here,
So their
which is
quest is to find the shield so that they
right.
can unite the kingdoms and have peace forever after.
Exactly. So, with that said, I do have some of the stuff already queued up. We're going to look at the intro real quick and a quick little scene of Goltar and the Golden Lands.
Yay! Get fuzzy. Ooh. Ooh, can fly.
And that was the actual intro.
Okay.
And now for the actual scene from Goltar itself here. So far, what's your thoughts, real quick? before we get into the actual scene.
I almost expected to hear a wah wah guitar in the background of that theme song.
Mhm.
It kind of has it has a kind of 70, it does have a 70s feel to it. And I was sitting there watching going, oh, but it's interesting because it's like, is the girl that sits behind him on that thingy the companion that's looking
That
over him?
exactly. This
Okay,
this scene will explain a little bit better about what is
because
actually happening here.
she seems so very secondary.
No, she's really not secondary.
But I'm just saying the opening sequence,
Make her seem very
very like
secondary.
she's just sort of inconsequential.
Mhm.
Something's wrong with Thork.
You stay with Mercer, pretty Golita. What is your fondest dream, Golita?
To recover the sacred shield and claim my rightful place on the throne of Dindal.
I have a way to help you.
How?
Look into the fire. Stay with me, Golita. Stay.
Galtar and I. Bandasar.
No, it's best that you stay here, pretty Golita.
There's something wrong with Thork. I think it's time to leave.
I'm staying, Galtar.
You what?
I said I'm staying.
Here? But what about Bandasar and the Sacred Shield?
I don't care about the shield. I'm sick of this foolish quest of ours.
But I thought we were a team, Golita.
You were wrong. I'm staying with Mercer.
The girl's tired. You go ahead, brave Goltar. I'll take care of her.
You're serious? That's what you want?
That's what I want, Galtar.
All right, I'll go then. Alone.
Step through, Golita. This is my kingdom. And this is one of my children. And none has ever wanted to leave. It's been a long time since Mercer had a guest staying with her.
Oh my goodness.
Beautiful. You know how beautiful you are, Golita. Let me show you. So beautiful.
Ah, okay, I get it now.
Mercer is young again.
And that is pretty much it here. If I can get this acting right. So that was a quick little scene here. And yeah, the intro made her seem secondary, but she is very much a part of the series because without her becoming the ruler of her kingdom by getting the shield,
There can be no
everything that they
peace.
working for goes to heck in a handbasket because
Okay.
they can't bridge everything together with him and only the golden lance. They have to have the lance and the shield together.
Leia said, the old lady is mean when I turn 201 and become evil. I've already passed 201. Maybe when I turn 400. Besides,
I'm just thinking about it's like, oh no, Beatty gotta watch out. It's like, don't you know how pretty you are, Beatty? Let me show you.
no. See, I like the thug boys. You walk, you
Uh-huh.
kind of do the old lady thing, and you
Yeah.
toddle up to the thug boys. Oh, I can barely stand. And they're like, "Oh, I can help you," because he gonna come think he gonna take my money, and I grab him by the arm and start sucking the life out, you know. And it's like, ha ha, just one more old man to go toddling down the street. Get away from me.
That'd be funny. It's like some big old dude be like, "Oh, really? Let me show you how strong you really are compared to me." It's sucking, and then you get all the big old muscles and everything. He's like, "What had happened to me?"
I
Pa!
can't get my card up on this curve. It's too high. It's like this high, but I can't get my card. I take that card. Oh, grab him by the arm. Thank you. Okay. It gets home to his homeboys. So like, who you, grandpa? No, it's me. It's like, I'm the hag of the hood.
Yes, but it's safe to say that Goleta gets her life force back at the very end. It's very. The show is, as I remember, one of those things that it was an attempt to attempt to have something that was similar to Thundar, but it just didn't work.
Oh, well, they can't all be winners. And there's that point where you keep recycling the ideas. And even though it's a different generation, they're still going to get the feeling that, there's not it it doesn't feel fresh, if that makes sense to you. It doesn't
Yeah,
feel,
it
it
makes
feels
sense.
yeah, it just feels recycled. So even kids are going to probably sit there and go, okay, this is a remake of what? Because who, I mean, by this stage, even they've seen other series that kind of have that same storyline and stuff, and it's
Mm.
like, okay, nothing new. It's just a different, it's just a different group of artists, but there's nothing new. Oh well, I guess I'll go play with my shrinky dinks. Or whatever.
Well, like I said, it was like a late '80s cartoon, so you have to think that Thundar came what, early '80s, like 81, 82. This came about like 88,
Okay.
89. So we're about to get into the '90s.
Yeah, and by then, kids, you were getting more anime. You were starting to get anime in there, and
Mhm.
kids were getting a bit more sophisticated in their tastes and whatnot. And smarter parents were like splitting their time between, okay, shrinking, love to make them shrink. Yes, smarter parents were also going, okay, you have to put so much of your time into these shows on PBS. And the kids go, why? It's because it will make it easy, it'll make doing things like math and English and whatnot easier. And you might learn how to deal with other people,
Mhm.
and you can ask me questions about stuff if you don't get it. So I think even parents were, and it's funny because when I was a kid, they used to joke about, TV. Even back then they were joking about TV being the electronic babysitter.
Well, it is an electronic babysitter if you look at it in a certain point of view, but it's not truly is an electronic babysitter. It depends on your point of view on it.
And especially if you just sit your kids there and you don't pay attention to what they're watching, it's like, great, they're focused on that, and I can go get the dishes done, or whatever. I can sit in here and watch my stories while, which is, I mean, I guess growing up, I grew up under a lot of women who watched and I actually did make the mistake of challenging them by saying, hey, you're not Obi-Wan, okay. But I actually said, you watch this, you're watching Guiding Light and Ryan's Hope and all these different soap operas. What's the difference between me wanting to watch my cartoons and you wanting to watch your soap operas? because it's, because they've got, oh, you're just sitting there in front of that boob tube in your cartoons. It's like, yeah, but you be sitting there watching the soap operas. What's the difference? Because you old?
No, but it goes back to a lot of times for what they were talking about, how they used to call the television the idiot box, because you didn't
The
have
boob tube was the term I used to hear when I was growing up. It was
when I was
the
growing up,
boob
it's called the idiot box, because there were so many other programs that was there not 100% telling the truth. It was stuff to be entertained by. So the question it was really being, it's like, are you really being entertained by something that was intellectual, or are you being dumbed down?
I don't know. I guess once I discovered it, I found PBS helpful. I loved PBS because it opened the world to a lot of shows that you didn't get on regular TV. So like Doctor Who, I discovered Doctor Who via PBS. I discovered Monty Python via PBS. Masterpiece Theater. Um, they used to have had, I forgot what it was called, but the opening sequence was with a balloon. And they did their own version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but they did it like a mini series. And it was live action. It wasn't. There are two versions of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. CBS did a hour-long version of it. Oh no! I don't think I ever saw Benny Hill on PBS.
No, but I saw
Used
Benny
to be on
Hill on
Channel
32. I saw Benny Hill on 32.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm trying to remember what channel it was on when we lived in LA. But they did a version of The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and they made it more like a mini series. So, like every week you get another episode, maybe like, what is it, 45 minutes or so, which was great because they kept. CBS was these are the main beats of the story. They have these brothers and sisters. They're stuck here at this old guy's house. The youngest sister ends up in Narnia while playing hide and seek, and she tells the other ones they don't believe her. They end up back in, there's an accident. They go back in, and it follows the beats of the story, but it doesn't tell the whole story. But for CBS, I thought it was pretty revolutionary for the time, because when you think about, as children's stories go, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is pretty dark, and they actually do the, Aslan buys it on the stone. They don't show the actual stabbing, but one minute he's there, and they show the cruelty that's done to him by the queen and her milieu. So it was pretty interesting. That live action one they did on PBS was kind of trippy, but it was still fun. Fun.
We had a different dichotomy, because PBS wasn't really something that interests me all that much until it was like, I used to like Electric Company. I liked watching 3-2-1 Contact, but that was afternoons.
Yeah. It was different.
My source of television, which really got me hooked television, surprisingly enough, was a set of shows that most people would never think about allowing their kids to watch on a consistent basis, day in and day out.
Which ones?
Oh, I used to watch things such as Jeopardy, $20,000 Pyramid, $10,000 Pyramid, Gambit. If it was a game show, I would watch it. And people would forget that it's like, oh yeah, game shows were entertaining and this, that, and the other, and blah 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 blah. It's like, no, but game shows had a lot of trivia.
Yeah.
Unless you were dealing with something like Beat the Clock or something to that magnitude. Well, Family Feud, is trivia, surveys and trivia. Jeopardy, 100% knowledge and trivia. And then we get into later incarnations of game shows such as Death.
Okay, I never saw that one.
Greed.
Okay, I never saw
and,
that
and
one.
all of these other game shows that was dealt with higher trivia. And then when I started to go back and started to look for older shows that was dealing more with trivia, and you get into the scandal areas such as the scandal about the $64,000 question, the scandal
Oh,
dealing with 21, this, all of those major big money trivia game shows where people were sometimes getting the answers beforehand and they was getting, if I could say, groomed
yeah.
to be a champion just to keep sponsors.
A sponsor might like the look of of someone when they come in the audition and say, "We want to see them."
Yeah, they
Um,
want to see them win and keep them as a champion until they see somebody else that is like, oh, that's a good representative. I know people will watch that person, and then
oh,
they will bring their so-called champion into a meeting. It's like, okay, we need you for you to tank this episode, and they will look at them crazy. It's like, no, it's like I got fame and fortune and all this other. It's like, why I want to tank it? It's like, trust me, you want to tank this episode, we might give you an extra couple of $1,000 afterwards. Just tank it, you'll be fine.
yeah. I
And like I
think
said, the whole movie quiz show actually happened. That actually really happened in real life. That blew the door off of a lot of these older game shows from like the early 50s early 50s going into the 60s here, because they used a lot of exploitative methods to manipulate the audience. It was not a fair competition.
you should see what Beanie just said about you.
Well, I see a lot of it. I just haven't had a
No, no,
chance to
no.
write.
Go down. Go down. Next one.
It's like Uncle Joe is an old man with an old man sweater with his original in his left pocket and his half moon specs.
That was a good one. Okay. Before I forget,
She's trying to be funny today. That's cool.
my favorite game show
Mhm.
growing up was Hollywood Squares.
That wasn't too bad. That wasn't
And
too bad of a show. But that is a hallmark, what I consider a hallmark show, because that show has staying power. It has many different incarnations beyond the Peter Marshall years.
yeah, but the Peter Marshall years, I enjoyed that show because it was really racy. When you had like
Nighttime
people at
was
the center
extremely
square,
racy.
when you had people in the center square like Charles Nelson Riley and Liberace, and that was where the big gay performer used to own that center square. So you had
Oh,
Charles Nelson Riley, you had Liberace, and they weren't outed the
you keep
way they
forgetting
out them
about
now.
the center square of all center squares. You keep forgetting about them.
Okay, who am I forgetting?
Paul Lynn.
Paul Lynn, yes, he owned that center square for, I think, what, a good 10, 15 years. Paul Lynn owned the center
Mhm.
square. But yeah, I mean, that I like, it was a more adult show, but I actually got quite a few of the jokes and
Mhm.
enjoyed it. I didn't really care if they got the questions right or not. I just loved hearing their answers. And some of those answers were truthful. Others were like, if it was whoever you kind of quickly learned whoever was in the center square was, they might give you the truth, but they would give it to you in a way that was like, oh goodness, I wish I hadn't bet on, because you would also win the most money with the center square
No,
if they got it right.
no,
I'm
you're confusing that with tic tac toe.
tic tac toe. That's right. Sorry.
Tic tac toe had the center box was the most money in that, but that's not.
But those shows they were somewhat informational, but they were also a lot of fun. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't learn anything I didn't know, but boy, was that hilarious to watch.
Well, things that people don't know about the Peter Marshall years. All of those bluff answers were ad libbed.
Yeah.
They weren't scripted jokes like it is today. They
No,
couldn't
back
get away with the stuff that they did in the nighttime version of Hollywood Squares and Peter Marshall days anymore.
they had the answer, but it was like I think they were given the option to either give them the actual answer or come up with something totally off their not.
Not no, the way that Hollywood Squares work. If you watch the behind the scenes here,
Oh, I never
it,
watched
it
behind the
the
scenes.
behind the scenes is that the squares were given the questions beforehand. Now, whether or not they go and research the answers is on them.
Ah, okay.
So that's why I said it was ad lib as opposed to how you got to like the John Davidson era and the Tom Bergeron era, where the jokes and stuff was a little bit more scripted to keep them on pace.
But it was also
And because the
there.
jokes and stuff were scripted, the only thing that was in modern Hollywood Squares that even remotely was like the Peter Marshall era was the Gilbert Godfrey "You Fool" episode.
Okay. Now I
And
like
it
the
was a
old
running joke for that one episode because the contestants were not getting any of the questions right. And it was like, well, I'm going to take such and such for the win. Okay, we're going to take Gilbert Godfrey for the win. Okay, fine. Okay, Gilbert, who did this, and this? Well, if I remember correctly, it was such and such, such and such. I agree. You fool!
so you could win. He definitely knew his way around that. It would have a couple of seasons of Godfrey at the center square. I don't think anybody would have watched anything else on TV for that time slot.
Well, you have to think about it. During the Tom Bergeron era, you had Whoopi Goldberg for the majority of the time. Then it left from Whoopi Goldberg to Bruce Valanche, who was the center square. And
Yeah.
then they had TV Game Show Week where they brought Peter back, and Peter was the center square except for one episode where he was like, "It's like I want Peter to host his show again," and he actually hosted it. And the first thing that came out of his mouth was like, "Oh, this is great. It's an honor to be back here at the helm of this, that, and the other. And our first game for $1,000." Like, what are you talking about? It's $1,000. It caught him so off guard. I remember that moment. I was just cracking up laughing because you have to think it's like our first game was a $250 game, and he's up there talking about our first game is $1,000.
$1,000. Woo!
$1,000. What are you talking about?
You just blew the budget of the show. Come on now. Yeah,
So
that was like I said. I'm from the old years with the older guys, so I enjoyed that. Before I forget, and before my tooth gets to the point where I'm like, okay, I gotta go lay down and take yet another ibuprofen. I wanted to tell you, critters,
mhm.
today. Well, actually, yesterday, the Mighty Nine dropped. Actually, episode 1 dropped. What was that? Monday, Courtney? They dropped episode 1 Sunday or Monday?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they dropped it early. Don't know why. But you can catch episode 1 for free here on YouTube. Go to Amazon Prime's YouTube channel. I believe you can still catch it for free. If you haven't seen the Mighty Nine, you will enjoy it. If you've seen the entire Critical Role or part of Critical Role's Mighty Nine campaign, which is campaign 2, you will still enjoy it. The story is being told a little differently than they did it on a tabletop. And in many ways, that's a little better because the way they played it out on the tabletop, you got things in flashbacks. People would tell you something when their part of their personal story kind of ran up against the situation they were in a really bad way. And then you would learn their backstory and be gutted. And it was good, but this way we're learning more, not just about the characters, but we're also learning about the political backdrop in which they find them. That there's all these machinations, there are all these levels of deceit going on that they end up, as once they come together, they end up involved in. And we get to see those things early. We get to see characters that we only meet originally through a quick flashback, and then we get to see them later. We get to see those characters up front. Ashley Johnson fans, the first 3 episodes, we get to see a quick shot of her at the end of episode 3. Here's the thing. While they were doing the live tabletop, Ashley was working on the series Blindside. And she had to spend a lot of time not at the table. There were a couple of times where they would do a Zoom thing and she would be able to play, but she spent a lot of time not at the table with other players, either playing her part or just going, well, Ashley's there, we're going to say she threw and did this. So there are big chunks of the live action tabletop that Ashley wasn't there because, hey, she got a job. NBC hired her to be on a TV show, and she had to be in New York while the rest of her crew in LA. And instead of saying, hey, we don't like the fact that you got a job, so we're kicking you out the crew, they just found ways to work around it. And so as they're retelling their story for animation, they're kind of working that situation in. And while I and other critters were a little bit surprised by some of the ways they changed it, it doesn't take away from the story. In fact, it makes it a lot clearer to those who didn't see the role play. It'll make things a lot clearer as the story goes along by giving you the backdrop now, as opposed to giving you dumps of it later. It'll help. Believe me, it'll help. And the cast, as always, is amazing. The guest cast. Oh my God. Mark Strong as Trent Ickathon. Holy crap. If you don't know who Mark Strong is, you obviously don't watch stuff in the genre on TV and movies because, you know. Graham McTavish, you know him from The Hobbit. He was one of the dwarves, one of the closer dwarves with Thorin. He's in it. Ania knocking. I don't get up. Annie, no, I cannot say this woman's name, but she plays Jester's mother and she sings this song, and it's so good. And she is called the Ruby of the Sea. And well, you can be a woman and never looked at another woman and see her character and go, oh, I'm just sorry. Lucy Liu is in this. Ming Na Wen is going to be in this. They have a list of guest actors who are coming in this who are just going to astound you. Hold on. Who's that country singer again that played? Tim McGraw is in episode 2. And it's like I said, the Alan Cumming is in this. It's a who's who of genre actors and their voice acting, and it's amazing and it's fun. And this is not for children. Okay, I'm gonna tell you that right now. This is not for children. Leia, stick your finger in Beanie's ears. She can't hear this. Let me know when you've done it. Oh wait, she can't let me know because she can't put her fingers in Beanie's ears.
Mm-hmm.
She draw one of the most interesting characters in this series, Chester, likes to draw certain portions of the male anatomy. She draws them everywhere. It's her thing. And in one episode, she conjured one and slapped the guy in the face with it. It was hilarious. It was wonderful. You have to watch it, Joe. You gotta watch it. That scene alone will just give you the giggles. Anyway, I give it a definite watch. It's fun. It is the action is just yeah, winky slap. It's a winky slap. It's a winky slap. But it's got action, it's got humor. Um, it'll there are parts that'll make leave you rolling on the floor and laughing, and then there are parts that will break your heart to pieces. But it's also got great action. The magic is amazing. The anime tit mouse has just a tit mouse. That's a tit mouse. I love the name. I can't stop saying tit mouse. Anyway, watch it. Come back. Talk to me about it. I will tell you who's who. What? Well, I won't give you spoilers, but I can tell you who's who and how long. Sorry, I'm bad. Okay, I'm sick. I need
Better for us to do
ibuprofen.
it than somebody on the dark side to do it.
And it's a darker series than Vox Machina in many ways. But like I said, none of the reactors who have seen this have been disappointed, because the people who were in the show, they didn't just hand episodes off to a staff of writers and said, "Oh, go do what you want." Marisha Ray, Travis Willingham, Sam Riegel, and understand, Sam Riegel had throat cancer. Okay, he didn't know if he was ever going to talk again. He didn't know if he was going to survive the surgery. He left he left campaign 3 in tears, because they didn't know if he was going to pull through that surgery. And shortly after that surgery, he had to teach himself how to talk again so he could come up and play the role of Not the Brave. That was his level of dedication. These people believe in what they do, and it shows. It comes out. You feel it in the story. There are characters you're going to love. There are characters you're going to hate. There are characters who you will love one minute and go, "Oh, dang, can I push him off a cliff?" And one, you're going to say, "Can I just set him in fire and feed him to a dragon?" And then let it go, "Oh, I kind of like him." Because they're that good and they know what they're doing. Watch it. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Joe has disappeared.
No, I haven't disappeared. It's just like it's like you kept going, kept going, kept going. It's like, okay.
I am going to
Uh-huh.
I'm going to take my sore tooth and what feels like my 6-foot swollen jaw. It's not really that swollen. It just feels that way from the inside. And I am going to crawl into bed. Y'all have a good evening. I love you. I am at work on book 2. I will talk more about it when we come back from vacation, because we're not here.
Oh, that reminds me, because now I can say it this week. There is no show
Yes.
tomorrow. There's no show next Thursday, because they will kill me for having a show on Thanksgiving, especially the one sitting right there. Especially the one that's sitting right there. She'll be like,
dinner.
She's like, "I gotta cook dinner. You going to make me stop not cook dinner? Have all these hungry folks in my house, and they're going to sit here and watch me be on a live stream and be like, what's to eat? What's there to eat?"
Or you will see them coming up behind me, forks and knives and stuff, and a hand going, "We ain't got no food because she up on your camera." Or the turkey wasn't quite done because she had to stop cooking so she could be up on your camera. Hello, when I go in there, slacker.
She ain't right. She ain't right for that. It's like, what do you mean cook dinner? Dinner is done by 2 p.m.
No, sweetie, I start cooking the day before, and then I get myself a little sleep, and then I get up, I start heating stuff up, and then, cooking the rest. And I got to card stuff just right because, yes, Sally Gartman, I know I got to give you my bones for soup. She gets upset if she don't get my bones for soup. Anyway, y'all take care. I do. Oh, you. I do. I'm gonna do my turkey that day, and then the night before I do the stuffing and the mac and cheese, and then the turkey, the biscuits, the broccoli get cooked fresh that day, and everything else gets warmed up. Oh, I also have to make um, pumpkin bread, quick bread for John because the Chicago Thanksgiving Day parade is that money that morning, that money. It's that money. Yeah, more money, more money.
Mhm.
Gobble gobble. I need to sleep because I am not. I am losing it. Okay, love y'all. I will see y'all after the holiday. Hope to see you there too, Cliff. I'm out.
All right.
Please.
Later.
Later.
Yep. So you guys are stuck with me for a little bit longer here. I'm not certain what we're going to end up doing here. I do have a book review and everything. You ain't right. So pretty much what's going to end up happening here is, like I said, there's no show this upcoming Thursday. Oh, there she is. There's you missed everything here. We did the Gold Tar and the Golden Lance early here. Um, Elaine had to leave here, so you just missed her. But we talked about a couple of things here dealing with TV and what we grew up with and everything to that magnitude. It's like how she grew up with PBS and I grew up more with game shows and stuff and everything to that magnitude. And I was about to get ready into going into kind of like a comic book review here. I can't do that. It's like I don't have a capture card because if I did anything like that, I need to have a capture card where we could show it to you live. And I'm not going to use the laptop for gaming here. And everybody saying hello. Yeah, Goltar is interesting. Yep, they're the same person. No, they're not. They're not the same person. But for tonight's review here, we're going to do something that I'm glad that I finally got the first two issues of, and I need to go ahead and get the rest on. But we got the latest and greatest Fire and Ice series here. This is Fire and Ice When Hell Freezes Over. And we got the first two issues of that as a whole here. Actually, that is correct. That is correct here. However, the overall series itself was too much akin to Thundar, and it just didn't feel like it was its own adventure show for the late '80s. Because remember, you had Thundar the Barbarian in the early '80s, like in '80, '81. Gotar and the Golden Lance came about 88, 89. And we just got through seeing a clip of dealing with Goleta, and Goleta, getting kind of like mesmerized by this older witch that Parallax was equating to Elaine and everything, and she ended up stealing Goleta's youth. And if you watch the rest of the episode, it's more along the line, they actually mistaken that older witch for Goleta, the main villain. The main villain ended up capturing her and thinking that it's like, okay, since now I have her captured, the whole quest for the mystical shield is no longer needed. I could rule over everything until Goldar came back to where they was originally lodging at with the old witch, and saw that Goleta was turned old, was able to restore her back to her normal self, and the witch was was revealed to be a fake. Yeah, I believe you would. Yeah, Thundar to me, because of all the talent that they had, all the comic book talent that they had from back in the day. That would made Thundar a lot more interesting than Goltar. Goldar was kind of like trying to capture that same magic, but didn't. And it wasn't until maybe like another decade later when we got into like the late 90s, early 2000s, when we finally got the Pirates of Dark Water, that we got something that was more akin to the storytelling of Thundar the Barbarian, where the storytelling was really, really good and captivating, and it had multiple layers that make you want to watch for the next episode. But getting back to the comic book review here, we're getting into Fire and Ice when Hell freezes over. Now, the good thing about this version of Fire and Ice, or this series of Fire and Ice, it takes off at the very end of the series, the Fire and Ice Welcome to Smallville. So it starts off right there at the very end again, dealing with that miniseries, and it picks up where they left off. You know, their so-called beauty shop is, back in flames again. That's kind of like a running gag and everything here. And the problem here is that at the very end, they found out that whatever happened with their last fight to save Metropolis, that Beatrice and Nora's powers got swapped again. So now Nora has Beatrice powers and Beatrice have Nora's powers. So now fire can now actually control ice, and ice can control fire. And it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, now what's going to end up happening, since since all of this is going on. It's like some of this stuff got to get fixed and everything to that magnitude. Now, the whole thing about the beauty shop is still intact here. They're still trying to rehabilitate a lot of the so-called B and C list villains in the DC universe here, through giving them the opportunity to work, to work at the shop, to do their penance to society. And a lot of it is working very well for that here. So it's very good and everything. And, the whole thing about reestablishing their relationship to the said community of Smallville, to kind of reacclimate themselves here until they are needed elsewhere. And when I say needed elsewhere, we're talking about if the Justice League was to reform again and they needed them back in the Justice League and everything to that magnitude here. Yep, Jack Kirby designs for yep, that was correct here. Yeah, DC characters. That is correct. Yeah, Fire and Ice were members of Justice League International. That is correct here. I remember. Yeah, sad that they weren't in. Yeah, and that's kind of like where things are going here, because technically now, up on the new canon for DC, Fire and Ice would be now considered part of the Superman family, even though they don't have the S logo. They're not Steel, they're not Supergirl, they're not Power Girl, and all this other stuff. Technically, they are considered part of the Superman family now, according to what Kal-El did for some of the members of Justice League International, and they were two of them. Just like we don't know what truly happened with Booster Gold and with Booster Gold now, and Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, because they were also a part of International for a bit of time here. Yeah, we had Hot Girl screeching like a maniac. Yeah, in that Superman movie, the latest Superman movie. Yeah, that wasn't all that great, but I did kind of dig Guy Gardner to an extent, but I enjoyed Mr. Terrific more. To me, that movie was really more about it. It really should have been more of a Justice League movie, like the beginnings of the Justice League, as opposed to a Superman movie. But it is what it is here. So pretty much most of the book is really setting up what is going to happen and how they're going to move forward with the beauty shop, and how they're going to deal with the switching of the powers and everything, until they have like this one get together in the beauty shop to kind of like solidify things that they're going to be kind of like permanent residents of Smallville. And One thing leads to another, and Satana shows up. So they're having like this one major karaoke party and this, that, and the other. And lo and behold, Beatrice being Beatrice, it's like, hey, there's Satana's hat. Let me take a look at what's going on with Satana's hat here. So she's going in here, she's digging in the hat. First thing she pulls out is a knife. Next thing she pulls is gold. Next thing she pulls out is an eye. And everybody else is not really noticing much of anything until she reaches in and pulls out a monkey's paw. And that's what she's pulling out right there. She's pulling out a monkey's paw. She pulled out a monkey's paw. And everybody finally sees that, and she started to make a wish. And it's like, and Satana's like, don't do it. Don't make the wish and this, that, and the other. And boom, wish was granted. And everything, yada, yada, yada. And she's up there. It's like, see, everybody could chill out. It was just a simple little wish. No major thing happens. But everybody knows what happened with a monkey's paw and everything. Something bad is going to happen. It's going to grant you your wish, but something bad is actually going to happen. So now, mind you, the powers was already switched now. What's the worst thing that can happen when you wish for everything to go back to normal? How about not only do you have the person's powers, now you are them. So Beatrice is now Nora, and Nora is now Beatrice, not just by powers, but also by physical being as well. And that's how issue number 1 ended up here. That not only now do they have one another's powers, they also have one another's bodies. So issue number 2, I'm not going to go into it in depth like I did with issue number 1 as far as showing the pages and everything. But issue number 2 deals more with what's going to end up happening now, since we have actually swapped bodies here. How are we going to get back to normal? So people started to do the research and everything about how they could adjust to one another's powers and being the other person, and then trying to figure out how they can reverse the effects of the monkey's paw. At the very end of issue number 2, one person figured it out. It's like, okay, well, Naboo mentioned that there is a certain source of power that could go that they could go and grab, and if you could able to get this one document, and I say document loosely, is really more like a tomb / tablet type deal. You could use that to reverse what had happened, and you both could be, both can go back to normal. But the problem here is it's in the center of hell. So now they're up here about to get ready to try to track down somebody like Constantine, for they could figure out a way to map a route to go to hell, to go directly to this particular place in hell, for they could infiltrate it and get said tablet. Overall, it wasn't a bad read. It's still a lot jokey. It's jokiness throughout the whole thing, but it's still a great series, because it's more of a buddy series. If you ever read a lot of the older team ups between Ted Kort, Blue Beetle, and Booster Gold, it's kind of akin to that, but at least when things go awry with them, there's other circumstances beyond their control that causes that. In this case, what's going on now is like, yeah, because Beatrice was being very facetious and being herself, they got the situation that they was in got worse. But the answer to their question makes things even far worse than the long run. Overall, like I said, it's a decent read. And so far, I would give the series up to this point maybe a 6 out of 10. It could be a lot better if they would expand on the aspect of why these bad things been happening to both of them over the last couple of series here, especially after what happened with Dawn of DC. I think that part was not clearly stated about what was the big mess up where Kal-El had to step in to say, no, I want you here in Smallville for I could keep an eye on you. Not because he didn't trust them. It was more along the lines for the betterment and the safety of everybody. It was best for them to be in Smallville, out of the way, than in the limelight. And that what makes it kind of interesting here. And let me go ahead and get to a lot of the comments and questions here. Cause I know we were talking about the Superman movie and the new Superman movie. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with it. There was a lot of problems with it, but we're not going to go there. Yeah, we talked about that. It's like, yeah, James Gunn probably would have ruined them. Yeah, I would agree. Because that was not Shy era. That's not the Shy era that we grew up with the comic books. That's the reason why you didn't like Hawk Girl. That Hawk Girl did not act like the Shiera that we either got in Justice League cartoon series or in the books. It just wasn't. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, she got away with it. Yeah. Well, because again, the focus of the story was around Superman, not her. That's the real reason. And plus, it's a plot hole. It's a major plot hole. So again, they're up here trying to form the another Justice League in that Superman movie, and even they were imperfect. So to answer that question, it's a major writer's plot hole when that happens here. But again, I don't even want to talk about Wonder Woman 84. It was not the right way for people to deal with consequences in Wonder Woman 84, but they do deal with those type of consequences. Women do have consequences in DC movies. It is what it is. But in that Superman movie, yeah, that was a visual ball that was dropped. His his biological mother, the way that they wrote the movie is different than the way that the comic book was written. And yeah, you're right. If you are a moviegoer, that would be a major question mark. If they're like, yeah, why didn't she go to prison? Why isn't the police looking, going after her? It's like, child abandonment is child abandonment. I could pretty much say the same thing about Home Alone 1. Or at least Home Alone 2. You went all the way across the globe. And here Kevin is in New York by himself. And you think child abandonment laws doesn't apply when it's the second time that you did that? Hmm. Hmm. Just saying. Just saying. Something to think about. Yeah, they did try to track her down in the movie, but like I said, you have to take a movie with the grain of salt because movies are generally not written 100% based upon the source material. And that was just one of those things. If you're just only a moviegoer and don't know the source material, those are good questions to ask. That is just not simply just one of those things that's like, oh, just blow it off because it's just a comic book character. Is more along the lines, it can't really blow it off because you're trying to build a franchise, you're trying to build believability. But also one of the things that a lot of the screenwriters don't do is that they need to make that bridge from movie to comic book to get people to read the source material, and they don't do that anymore. Yeah. The one thing that I was kind of hoping that would have happened in the Shazam movie is that they would have eventually talked about Uncle Dudley, especially in the second movie. The second movie, I was waiting for Uncle Dudley to appear, but that never happened. Never happened. His costume was laughable. Yep. Yeah, Hawk Girl was great in Justice League cartoon. Yep. Don't get me started with all the plot holes in Wonder Woman 84. Of course, Cheetah was not going to go to prison, but also in that same heartbeat, in that same sentence, she reverted back to the way that she was. Plus, she also violated the one rule about that stone. She ended up getting 2 wishes. So don't even get me started with the whole Barbara thing that messed up that whole movie. It is what it is. What was Diana and Barbara fighting about? The simple again, that's what the whole thing about the Stone's wish does. Barbara wished to be more like Diana at first. And for her to be more like Diana, it gave her confidence, it gave her fighting ability, it gave her all of this other stuff here. And her ego took over. Now, mind you, Diana's wish was to bring Steve back. And people hated how Steve came back. Again, I try to get people to understand the whole thing about the human psyche and all this other stuff. And it's like, it's still reverse rape and all this other stuff. It's like, yeah, but you don't think about the mental illness that comes from something like that, to have a individual that had died to come back in somebody else's body and literally prove it to you. That's something that's deeply more traumatic and everything, but everybody else is like, well, the guy's right in this, that, and the guy's right in this, that, and the other, and she rejected him and this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, she didn't really like reject him. It was more along the lines, it's like, nice to meet you, this, that, and the other, but it was what it was. But it's just poor writing all across the board with Wonder Woman 84. Yeah, Wonder Woman let Dr. Poison go for no reason in the first movie for no reason. Yeah, that was true. Well, technically Dr. Poison was not the focal point of the mission at that point. Dr. Poison got let go because they was after Ares, because they thought Dr. Poison was Ares, but it really wasn't. And that's the only reason why he got let go, if I remember the first Wonder Woman movie correctly. That is true. Home Alone is a comedy. That I will let that. Not always true. And the reason why I would say not always true, because in the comic books, they actually did a story that was part in Batman, part in the Catwoman series, dealing with that whole problem. And you want to know who brought that up? Who brought that up more so than anything else? The Joker. The Joker plotted a scheme to pretty much put it out there that Bruce always gave Selena a pass no matter what she did. So his plot was to make Selena do something so despicable, so out of the ordinary, out of her character, that she would have to be deemed to go to Arkham, because technically all of Batman's other villains had spent time in Arkham. Selena never did. But also in the same aspect, Selena does not do a lot of the heinous stuff that all Batman villains do. So when both Selena and Batman figured out what was going on, they finally stopped whatever the Joker was doing and everything. Batman was about to get ready. It's like, see, you always give her a pass, this, that, or the other. It's like, why can't I go about my merry way? You always putting me back in Arkham. And then Selena was like, you know what, Batman? You know what, Bruce? I got this. So Selena took the Joker, put him in Arkham, and she stayed. And she whooped the mess out of him in Arkham and then left. She beat the living snot out of him. It was like, oh, you want me in Arkham? Okay, fine. I'm here in Arkham. Let's do what they do in Arkham. And she beat the mess out of him and then she leaves. It's like, don't ever put me in the same category as you. And out she went. So it's not the fact that, women in DC gets a free pass. It's just more along the lines they are written in such a different way. And if you really think about it, it's like, Wonder Woman is one of the few people that has ever been arrested in the books and actually tried several times and was almost technically convicted in a regular U.S. trial, in a regular trial setting amongst regular people. Yeah, I know Batman and Superman had equivalent stories, but I mean, literally, she gave, she did not have any qualms and everything. And besides, we went through, what was it? Infinite Crisis, the whole thing that was done by the whole killing of I forgot his name here. Jason Lord. When she murdered Jason Lord. She actually went to jail for that. She actually went to trial for that. So, women do have their consequences. They do serve their consequence. They do get their comeuppance in the books, but in the movies, they're just not. It wasn't even frenemies. It was more along the lines. It's like Barbara's new abilities and her new confidence went to her head. Diana tried to knock her down a peg to bring her back to reality, and that whole thing just never got resolved in the movies. In the comic books, it's a lot deeper than that. It's a lot deeper than what it is. Yeah. That's one way. That's one way to put it, especially after having the first movie do so well. And then you get that turd that they did there. But, I was happy with the first movie because it got people, me being a Wonder Woman fan, it got people finally talking about Wonder Woman again in the right aspect of how she is a great superhero. Then we get 84 and it's like, I don't know. I just leave it there. I'm still wondering why Diana, as a little girl, wasn't allowed to win that race. This goes back to a lot of stuff about how movie arcs take liberty in a lot of things here. That race was supposed to have been the life lesson that she was supposed to learn as a little kid. The fact of the matter is she wasn't allowed to win the race the way that she did is because she did not complete the whole entire course. She missed one marker. Now, it wasn't due to her fault that she missed the marker. It was due to the fault of her competitors. It's like something happened and one of the competitors, kind of clipped her a little bit. She ended up losing, I think, her horse or something to that magnitude. And she ended up taking a more direct route that forced her to miss one marker. When it was all said and done, she was about to get ready to win the race. And the person who trained her the most, General Antepi, stopped her. And that's what the whole conversation was about in the scene that you're talking about. Why wasn't she allowed to win the race? That's because the general knew you did everything within your power to win this race, even with what actually happened here. But the rules are the rules. You missed a marker. Even though it wasn't your fault, you still missed a marker. It's not your right to win based upon that. It is not fair to everybody else who seemingly fought a fair fight in that race. And she was trying to tell us, like, you are the better of all of them. But you still have to follow by the rules. The rules are not, we can't bend the rules just because you are who you are. That was the lesson that she was supposed to learn about from that race. That whole scene got wiped out, messed up, thrown out because of the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie was crap. It is what it is. Exactly, Crimson. It was the life lesson. It's like, sometimes you just have to let certain things go, despite the fact that other people may have cheated, other people did not earn it, this, that, and the other. Sometimes you have to let things go. And that was the one thing that race was supposed to teach her. Rules do not get bent for you. Everybody has to follow up under the same rules. You could not be held as champion today because you missed one marker. Doesn't matter how well you did to get to overcome the circumstances that you had to overcome. The fact that you missed one marker makes you ineligible. That was the life lesson. Hansel Guy was definitely a victim of S. Yeah. And that was the whole thing. Everybody was so see, this is why I get so angry about writing and trying to get people to understand what really was going on, as opposed to focusing on what we got to see. It's like, no, that's this. It's like, yes, it's this, but here's the bigger problem with it because of the writing aspect of it. It wasn't like Hansel Guy never approached her in the first place. It wasn't like Hansel Guy was just some random stranger and she did what she did. They set it up. They set it up in such a way where it's like, oh, they actually met, so it's not like it's some other stranger. And then when she keeps noticing that how he kept stalking her, and that was the other thing that really grinded my gears about everybody that kept saying that that the Hansel Guy was a victim. It's like, no, the whole writing aspect of that is just so wonky and so wrong and just so blech, that it just made for cringiness across the board, which could not be justified if the situation was reversed. if that was more along the lines of a male having that happen, oh, they would be ready to cancel the movie. But because it's the role, because of the role was switched, it would be like, yeah, it's still cringy. It still should fall up under the same characteristics and all this other stuff. But this is how the monkey mucks over there in Hollywood tried to get around a lot of bad writing. Because remember, Hansel Dude stalked her until Steve was able to prove that it was really him in that guy's body. And because I keep trying to keep people to remember why it wasn't handsome guy at the point where Diana was saying, it's like, at that point, all I see was Steve. Go back and watch the movie again. When she said, at that point, I see nothing but Steve, it was Steve Trevor that she kept seeing. It wasn't handsome guy. Even in the movie, they never showed handsome guy until the very end, where he comes back and tries to approach Diana again. It was always Steve. Even when she was being stalked, it was handsome guy until handsome guy got to the point where he proved that he was Steve, and then she said, now all I see is Steve. And lo and behold, it was Steve Trevor for the rest of that movie. But it's just bad writing. Bad writing across the board doesn't justify stuff like that. Yeah. What is Hansel guy? What was Hansel guy's defense here? Believe it or not, I was once a World War I pilot. I used to be a soldier in your United States Army back in World War I, and I took and he took my body over and this, that, and the other, and we fought the good fight to kind of protect you and the rest of the people from Maxwell Lord. That's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Yeah, they probably would have. They probably would have if, again, the whole thing that I hated about the movie, about the Philosopher's Stone per se, and I'm going to say it really was a quote unquote Philosopher's Stone type scenario, monkey's paw / Philosopher's Stone type deal. I forgot what the actual name of the stone off the top of my head, but it's kind of like a Philosopher's Stone type deal here. The one thing that I hated, that when Maxwell Lord said that he finally rejected the power after absorbing all of it, was the simple fact that everybody's greed, everybody's ambition, all this other stuff just dissipated as if as nothing happened. And then on top of that, how did he was able to get to his son within 10 minutes of renouncing the power? The world was about to get ready to come to an end. His son was like in the middle of a city miles away from him in a 5-minute period. Oh, son, everything's going to be okay. This, that, and the other. I'm here for you. Blah, 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 blah. And where's the FBI? And where's the FBI, getting him? And then the sad part of that movie, and I'm glad that it didn't go the route that it should have. And this was after Maxwell Lord assumed the power of that stone. And I'm not sure if you remember that scene here. His son made a wish. and he couldn't stop his son from making that wish here. And when he did, there was nothing left for him. There was really nothing left for him to actually live for. His son was doomed, and his son wished for Maxwell to be successful. And that was after he, absorbed the power, and he didn't realize that it was until it was too late. That whole father and son moment where it was like all nice and supposed to be happy go lucky and this, that, and the other, and he didn't want the son to worry about him and all the stress and everything to that magnitude that he was going through. And then the son made the wish that's like, I wish that you would be successful where all this stuff would go away. And it's like at first it's like, oh, and then he'd be like, oh, and then he like, no, son, don't. And it's just like, it was what it was. Yes, she gets a free pass because Batman has the hots for it. No. Catwoman has been arrested. Catwoman just haven't never gone to Arkham. That's the real story that they really was trying to tell. Out of all of Batman rogues, Catwoman has never gone to Arkham. She has killed several times in comics. She's the only character that will kill. Despite the fact that Superman has killed universes, you have to go back to pre-crisis. Superman has killed universes before. Batman used to carry a gun and shot people before and killed them. Modern incarnations of them, they refuse to kill. Wonder Woman has no qualms about killing, but it would be the last thing that she would do. And the reason why it's the last thing is because she tries to give everybody a fair shake until there are no other options. That is the reason why Jason Lord died in Infinite Crisis. Jason Lord put her in the catch-22. It's like, haha, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. I know how you guys are. Y'all won't kill me. It's like, y'all won't kill me. Y'all try to figure out a better way to do this, 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 and this. And she snapped his neck. It's like, if it's between you or the rest, or saving the rest of the planet, snap. Your link is no longer to OMAC now. We're able to seize the satellites and everything. We're able to save the planet. You gave her no other choice. That's just how Diana is. No, in the comic book, Jason Lord, the son of Maxwell, was one of the main villains in Infinite Crisis. But there is a Maxwell Lord in the comics here. I call Wonder Woman 84 Wonder Woman versus Win. Wonder Woman versus Win. It was a forcible life lesson that they was doing for that movie here. That was the key thing. It was a forcible life lesson. Like I said, it was poor. Yep. That's the way that young Diana was taking it. Thanks a lot. Other people would have given up at that point when she lost the horse and all the other stuff here, but she was able to figure out a way to navigate the course via a makeshift. I want to say it was almost like she made a makeshift toboggan / sled to go down the hill, but because she did it that way, she missed the marker, and only one person had caught it. Only one person had caught it. And it's just like, why wouldn't other people have caught it? That just doesn't make any sense here. Yeah, life's lesson sucks. Lesson is no shortcuts. Yep. Poor handsome guy. Yep. No, he wasn't a complete total stranger. Diana blew him off, remember, in the very beginning. Diana kind of blew him off when he tried to approach. And then she made the wish with the stone here, and then all of a sudden, here comes handsome guy again, who Steve Trevor happened to embody now, kind of stalking her. And it wasn't until after they talked again. It wasn't, no, technically, no, you're right. No, actually, Parallax is right. That was a different guy. That was a different no-name guy. So yeah, different no-name guy really ended up getting the wrong thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Have no clue. Now, I'm going to explain this, and I'm going to explain this one more time. Could Steve Trevor fly a modern jet? Yes. Most of the equipment that's in modern jets would have also been on planes that he flew before. Here's the caveat to this. Would Steve be able to start the engines of a modern jet? The answer to that question is no, because he had no clue. He has no clue of the other instruments that could have been on that control panel at that time. They're not the same type of planes that was in World War One. However, most of the standard equipment in a plane in World War One would have been in a modern jet. So like the steering, the yokes, the flaps, and all the other stuff, that would have been second nature. The altimeter, all the other equipment such as that would have been standard. Where the fuel gauge, where the ignition for the engines and all this other stuff, he would not have any clue what that stuff was. So that what made that scene about them stealing that jet before Diana turned it invisible really laughable. Extremely laughable. Is it believable that he could fly it? Yes. The fact that he took command and took off in it, not going to happen. Not in a million years. There's way too many components that's on the actual control panel in that cockpit that he would not have known about at that time. Even better, Queen. Here's another one. Here's another one that was, if I could say, through the handy dandy aspect of script writing. They stole a jet from the Smithsonian. If you ever go to the Air and Space Museum at the Smithsonian, those planes are not fueled. And they specifically stated in the movie on the runway that they eventually got to, that these are the few planes that are still fueled. So they just happened to grab the very first plane that still had a full tank in the engine for them to take off and go to the Middle East. Right. Good writing, Warner Brothers. Now, like I said, we could talk about this movie and break it apart left and right and left and this, that, and the other. It doesn't make any sense here. We just covered that. That's the problem with poor writing in a script here. Y'all aren't right. You ain't right for that. Yep. Yeah, I said that earlier here. That's not coincidence. That's not coincidence because remember, when he embodied the whole thing with the stone and everything, everybody was making their so-called wishes to almost bring the end of the earth. Diana put the lasso of truth around him to allow him to clairvoyantly be able to track down where his son is, and he was able to see that his son was in distress. He gives up said power. He gives up said power and released it. Within 5 to 10 minutes, he was able to go to him and track him down that quickly. He's more than over 1,000 miles away. In 5 to 10 minutes, he was able to get there to embrace his son. No, poor writing. Poor writing. No. Go back to 1930s Batman. 1930s Batman, he carried an actual pistol and he used it. Now, is it canon today? No. But then again, a lot of the stuff in the original Bill Finger and I can't even think of the other guy's name, in the original incarnation of Batman are no longer being done today. But yeah, Batman did carry a gun and used it. But that's in the 1930s Batman. That's just like kind of like the same thing about 1930s Superman. 1930s Superman could not fly. He could leap tall buildings in a single bound. He was pretty much like the Hulk. A lot of the stuff Superman did, the Hulk did. And the Hulk came later. But Superman originally could not fly. But that's not a myth. Look at me. I can last on lightning. You're funny. Yeah, that's what we said. She could not have finished the race. That is correct here. See, that to me was the only good thing about Wonder Woman 1984 was the end credits, where we actually got to see Linda Carter. And that was the whole thing about, she's walking through this one marketplace and the one pillar fell and everything, and she grabs it with one head twisted in a certain way and brings it down safely. And I believe she says like, oh, it was nothing. It was just a matter of leverage. And she walks off. And the way that they frame her being in the movie is that the so-called golden armor that everybody donated to in that one war, she was the individual that was in the armor. she was the said warrior that was in the armor that eventually allowed them to win the war. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up here, so just bear with me here. I know these are older comments here. Because oh my god, I met a really cool dude 65 years ago. A plane is a plane. Are you saying a plane is not a plane? They had the on military had radar in World War One. There was crude forms of radar. So again, you're not going that direction here between World War One and now. There's going to be similar things that's there, but it's not enough. It's not enough components. It's not enough components and things that he wouldn't have known about how to fly a plane. He was a pilot. A pilot could fly a plane based upon the basic things that all planes have. Now, like I stated before, was he able to start up the jet, taxi, and do all this other stuff with a modern jet? Probably not, because again, he hasn't seen that type of technology before. But if the plane was in the air and Diana gave him the controls, yeah, he could fly that plane all day, every day. Because certain things with aerodynamics just don't change. That's the major difference here. Again, there's a difference in radar. The radar that is being used today is more akin to World War II. But there was radar back in World War One. It wasn't to the level of what we got now, but it was in its crudest forms. They may get radio blips, but they couldn't track it. They couldn't tell you where anything was located. They could just know that something is coming. Was it on planes in World War One? No. But there were stations in different battlefields where they could pick up larger things based upon radio waves. They wouldn't be able to tell where it's at. They could just detect. That's it. That's why I say radar in World War II was the more advanced form of a lot of the different things here. World War II was if I could say it in this aspect, it was the war that had a lot of inventions that came out of it. A lot of inventions for military and practical use applications here. But World War One, it's like they barely was, messing around with radio waves at that point and really seeing how far they could mess with radio. Yeah. Yeah. And they made the director the fall guy for that movie. I still feel that Wonder Woman 84 was more or less a flop, mainly because of Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers allow a movie to be written in such a way after the popularity of the first movie being so well received that they thought they could put anything and everything out and people would just go and watch it. Yeah, because cars, planes, etc., that runs with fuel are basically shown with with drains of fuel, because technically its fuel is bomb sitting there. Yep, pretty much. Why couldn't they take a commercial flight? Mainly because she's up here. How can you explain magical stranger without having without having his true identification and everything and all the stuff on him, such as passports and everything to that magnitude, ready to go at less than hours notice to go across, not even across the country, across the world to the Middle East. Yeah, that's just something that you just couldn't do. You just couldn't take a commercial flight and just expect to be like everything's going to be hunky dory without having proper documentation and all this other stuff. I mean, I'm just saying that just to, just to be like, it is what it is here. But yeah, Wonder Woman 84 was a bit. Yeah, Hansel guy probably had a pass. He probably had one, but again, would Steve know about it? Remember, at that point, Hansel guy was Steve. Steve does not have no passport. And Diana is up in that whole delusion. It's like, I got Steve back. I'm not with Hansel guy. I'm with Steve. So she wouldn't even think about Hansel guy would have had a passport. Let's go look for it. Yeah, don't remember that anyway. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to forget as well. Yep. You're still thinking about modern Bruce Wayne. 1930s Bruce, the 1930s Batman, he did carry a pistol. He did carry a sidearm with him. So that's the difference here. It's like we're going back deep into the Golden Age. Golden Age Batman did have a pistol. And even Batman, the Batman serials of the 1940s actually showed that he also carried a pistol back then. It wasn't until like the I want to say almost like 1947, 48, close to 1950, where they changed it, where he stopped carrying a gun. Because the gun was a part of his utility belt accessories. Yes. To be quite honest, Linda should have been Hippolyta. That would have been the way that I would have wrote the movie. It's like her being kind of like the person that most people recognize there. She should have been Hippolyta. But then again, it was good to see her in a movie here, because the last movie that I remember seeing her in that was superhero related was a little known movie called Sky High, where she was the principal of the high school where all the superhero teams went to. But that's a whole different can of worms within itself. Yeah, it could have been worse, and it could be. Yeah, it could have been worse. Trust me, it could have been worse. Have you ever seen the 1960s pilot of Wonder Woman? It could get worse. Wonder Woman 1984 wasn't bad, but that TV pilot for Wonder Woman in the 60s, after we ended up getting like Batman and Green Hornet, they actually did a pilot for Wonder Woman. That was horrible. That one was horrible. Remember, they stole the plane from the Smithsonian. They took off in the middle of the Independence Day celebration. Diana used this one ability that she so-called learned from Zeus about how to turn something invisible, and eventually she was able to turn the whole jet invisible. And now we're going to go right back to the radar question. And it's like, okay, if the jet is invisible, does that mean that is it truly invisible to radar at that point? Because technically that plane is still sending a signal and everything, but it is what it is. hit the nose on you hit the nail on the head with that one. But like I said, I'm not going to get into the science of all of that here. Yep. Super soldier serum. Yes. See, Queen is on it tonight. Super soldier serum. I believe it would have been well received if it was a comedy. But then again, it probably if they would have made it a comedy, it probably would have been as bad as the 1960s Wonder Woman pilot, which again they made that a more comedic as well, because it's not a magical stranger. They were at his house, his clothes. Might have had his passport. You don't know. Even saw him as a random dude, and she saw him as Chris Pine. And that's why I said people keep forgetting about the line. It's like he was stalking me around all this time, and then once she was convinced that it was Steve, that was all that she saw. She literally said that in the movie. At the point when she really was convinced that it was Steve, she literally said, "All I can see now is Steve." She didn't see mystery guy anymore. We don't know. He could have. They could have. I mean, Steve was wearing his clothes. Steve was doing all this other stuff. He had his wallet. We don't know if he had a passport or not. We just don't know. Again, we just don't know. We just don't know. It's just it is what it is. Yeah, it's just poor writing. It's just very, very bad writing. Extremely bad writing. See? See, I don't specifically remember a Batman story where he shot someone, not even in the Golden Age. In the Golden Age, Batman was very weird. He shot at people a couple of times, but I don't think he killed anyone. Batman, I don't think Batman. Well, no, take that back. Batman did kill back in the 30s, early 40s. It wasn't that often, but he has. Hold on. Hold on. We got some information to look at. Just bear with me for a few moments here. I want to bring it up on screen here because we got visual evidence that Batman carried a gun back in the 1930s. Now, like I said, normally I got a pretty deep memory when it comes to these weird facts here. But that was the whole thing about what makes Batman Batman and all this other stuff here. So just bear with me for 1 second. What makes Batman? And there we go. And that's from a Bob Kane. This is an internal panel where he carried. You can see he carried a gun and everything. The gun is actually smoking here. So he carried a gun back in the early days of Batman. It is what it is here. Yeah, they flew the jet from Washington D.C. to Egypt. Yep. So he took away a gun from the bad guy and held him at gunpoint. It was the comic where, oh, so you know this issue very well. I am actually impressed. Yeah, because you know science. Yes, that's what impressed me. It's like, oh, she knew the image right away. She knew the image right away. I have seen the pilot for Wonder Woman. It was made by that one was that one was awful. That was one of the most satirical, messed up versions of Wonder Woman ever. And like I said, it was just somebody's fever dream to have that type of Wonder Woman back in the 1960s. Well, you had the Wonder Woman movie that was Kathy Lee Crosby. That one was somewhat of a success here. And I say somewhat. So technically, it was going to be Kathy Lee Crosby as Wonder Woman, but then again, Wonder Woman was never blonde. And then you had one of our kind of like, if I could say, bon vivant of actors playing the villain of Ricardo Montalban with the main villain in the movie pilot. And then before that, before the movie in the 70s, they had a 1960s pilot that was done by, and like Crimson Ghost said, done by the creators of Batman and Green Hornet. That was just horrible. I'm glad that they never greenlit that one. But eventually, the 1970s Wonder Woman movie that they made for television using Kathy Lee Crosby eventually turned into what we got with Linda Carter. Exactly. Exactly. He was essentially more of a detective and was more patterned after the shadow. Yeah, he didn't really go exactly. He carried it as a sidearm. It was more for protection than anything else. Did he go into places guns a-blazing? No. He was still the detective and everything. No. And it's very rarely that he even draw his gun. But he did carry a gun, and he has killed. And that's the thing. I don't think he killed people with the gun, but he has killed before, and he did carry a sidearm. Yeah, it was just the splash page. Yep. Yeah, Kathy Lee Crosby played Wonder Woman in the second pilot, wore a different costume. So you do remember the Wonder Woman, the made for television movie for Wonder Woman, where she was the lead. She actually played Diana. And then they made, like you said, they made two pilots after that. One with her as Wonder Woman, and eventually the one with Linda Carter. No, it wasn't. Oh man, yeah. They tried to make it like they try to make it so much like a superhuman comedy. It's kind of like a superhero romantic comedy where the whole idea is that and they didn't even call her Diana per se. It was some offshoot of that, if I remember correctly. You know, she only transforms by looking at herself in a mirror. And it was just so much comedy because she was being kind of like, it was almost like being a single girl in the city with superpowers. And it to me, it just didn't work. It just didn't work as a comedy. You know, that Wonder Woman's, you know, they didn't work as a comedy. But wouldn't that make him closer to Sandman? That would make him closer to Sandman than anything else, because, well, then again, you know, we're not really going that way with Justice Society all that quickly here, because Detective Comics was out before we end up having All-Star Comics. And All-Star Comics, you know, if he was going around with a gas gun, it's like that would mean that technically Batman was you know, the prototype for Sandman. DC Sandman, that is. But that's kind of weird. Yes. That is correct. The original Wonder Woman could fly. She was invulnerable, just like Superman. She didn't have to block bullets with her bracelets. That was the whole thing about the joke that was going around the internet. Because Superman even says, like, why are you blocking bullets with your bracelets? You're invulnerable. And this is the original incarnation of Wonder Woman. It's like, you're invulnerable. It's like, okay, you really want to see what happens? And it kept, and she's up there, it's like, you know, stuck out her chest and everything, and people kept hitting her in her chest, and the boobs were bouncing left and right, left and right, left and right. Now you understand why I block them with my bracelets. Exactly. An obnoxious mom who was not Hippolyta, who was always trying to hook her up with any and every man that she came across here. And, you know, like I said, it was just one of those things that just the writers took too much liberty in trying to create that 1960 series, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work for me. Was it funny? Yeah, it was funny. It had his ha-ha laughs up in it, but it was just not Wonder Woman to me. It was nowhere close to what we had in the comics. To a certain degree, yes. He really had he did adopt. The older days led to why he had a no-kill rule. And that was the one thing that modern Batman does not explain very well. Batman killed before, and he had a hard time. He had a hard time after his first kill. Once his cherry was broken, as far as killing a person, he fell into that quagmire. It's like, now I want to kill everybody. And then he was like, you know, I want to kill every bad dude. And he was like, no, I can't do that. It's like, justice had to be prevailed. It's like, if I went ahead and killed those people that I feel that should have been killed, justice not really being served. And that was, you know, the beginning days in the early days of Detective Comics, where he was dealing with that demon. Yeah, funnily enough, early Batman didn't even have a Batmobile. We didn't know it as a Batmobile. It was just a simple little Rolls Royce that he drove, or Alfred drove for him. It's weird. He didn't have the prototypical Batmobile. He used a regular car. It was a regular car that he was chauffeured around in. It's Batman back in the early days in the 30s and 40s was completely different than what we got today. Way different. You couldn't recognize the two Batmans. If it wasn't for the suit, you would not recognize him as Batman. He comes off, like Queen said, he really comes off more like either like a spirit, or or even like Sandman or Shadow or something to that magnitude. Somebody that was really had more detective skills than anything else. He's not the Batman that we get today. Nowhere close to it. Yeah, Batmobile came way later. Yep. Drove a regular car, had to change the license plates with a button so the police couldn't track him. See, listen to Queen. She knows what she's talking about. She knows exactly what she's talking about. But anyway, folks, it is 2 hours. We made our 2 hours, even with just me here. We made our 2 hours here. Let's see, what did Chrism say here? Yeah, his costume really didn't change that much. He did have purple gloves for some reason. Yeah, he did. But we reached our 2 hour mark here. So, as always, Comic Book Spectrum is brought to you by Plasma Fire Graphics. If you are in the need of a cover for your novel, your graphic novel, your comic book, or anything that's written, you want to hit up Jeffrey Hayes at Plasma Fire Graphics. Why? Because you want an award-winning artist who can, through his graphics, get people to the table asking about your books and making things a lot better for you here. And let me see what's going on. Yeah, that probably is the only thing that changed. Yeah, exactly. Have a good night, Crimson here. So on that note here, if you really need somebody who can bring people to your table just by the cover that they produce here, take a gander at this.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasma Fire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasma Fire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
And as Queen said, they are very nice covers here. And that's what Jeffrey Hayes will bring to you. So if you need a cover for that brand new novel, novella, book, comic book, graphic novel, anything that's written, hit up Jeffrey Hayes at plasmafiregraphics.com or his Facebook group for Plasma Fire Graphics. And as always, I will be back here this upcoming Saturday for another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. What we're going to be talking about, I have the slightest idea here. And if you guys want to continue on this conversation about how bad Wonder Woman 84 is, that's fine too. But there's just a lot of stuff that just, when we think about these types of things, it just went wrong. Just poor writing as a whole here. We might pick apart a different movie. We never know. But knowing me, we'll probably talk about something about the collecting sphere. There's one other thing that really have been bothering me. Just saw a couple of videos about it, and I probably end up framing that as the topic for Saturday. And just to give you guys a little bit of a taste of what we might be talking about here, we're talking about so-called keys that investors said has cooled off. But what's really going on is that the actual market for those books has actually came back down to earth the way that's supposed to be. And that a lot of these books were overpriced for no apparent reason other than so-called fake demand. But we'll talk about that more later here. Yeah, DC always has problems, such as the current run of Wonder Woman up under Tom King. But I'll leave that alone for right now. So, until 2 weeks from now, remember, 2 weeks from now, if we're not going to have a show on Thanksgiving, I will see you then. Live life, grow, and be well. And unlike our founder of this show, Brian K. Morris, I don't care if you wash your hands. Just never, and I do mean never, apologize for being awesome. Have a good rest of your Thursday evening here. I'll see you here in 2 weeks if you're a watcher of Comic Book Spectrum, or I'll see you Saturday from the Desk of the Small Press Publisher. And we are out of here. And good evening to you. Bye.